The sanctuary city fight in full swing as one Massachusetts sheriff is now calling for the arrest of leaders in sanctuary cities. This after a Democratic representative, Massachusetts, Michelle Dubois, came under fire for a Facebook post warning illegal immigrants about rumored ICE raids yesterday, a post which she later altered and updated with a request for donations. Right now, it stands at 0. Bristol County Sheriff Thomas Hodgson calls her actions irresponsible, and he joins us from our nation's capital. Sheriff, good morning to you.
Good morning, Steve.
What's she doing?
You know, I think that's what most people in Massachusetts and across the country are asking. It's hard to imagine, it's unconscionable that an elected official would be sending out an alert that would put ICE officers at risk and our local officers at risk on dealing with these transnational gangs and these criminally illegal aliens when we're getting ready to do a raid. We need that element of surprise. Never mind allowing these people to maybe avoid being apprehended and going off into some other community and committing some crime against innocent people later on.
Sure. You know, I think what is getting lost in this, and first up, let's put up her post that we talked about yesterday. She wrote on Facebook, "I got the following information from my friend in the Latin community. I have a message for the immigrant community of Brockton. Please be careful yesterday. ICE will be in Brockton on that day." Okay. What's getting lost here, Sheriff, is the fact that, you know, if she's trying to address people who are in this country illegally without a criminal record, that's one thing. But she's also alerting, if that was her intention, people who are in this country illegally and have a criminal record or have a warrant out for their arrest, telling them as well, hey, look out, don't open the door because the bad guys are coming for you.
And what would she do, Steve, if it was a DEA raid with one of our task forces? Would she notify the smugglers and the drug dealers about the same thing? But this is the most outrageous thing I've ever heard an elected official to do, completely undermining their oath and undermining law enforcement's efforts to keep the community safe.
I understand you had a meeting yesterday. You got another one today. You say leaders of sanctuary cities should be arrested. Explain that idea.
Look, any elected official in this country that openly defies federal law under Section 1324 clearly states anyone who knows someone to be in the country illegally and attempts to harbor or conceal them commits a felony under federal law up to 5 years per alien. And any elected officials shouldn't be held less accountable for consequences when they violate federal law than are their constituents. So they can't take license because they're elected officials and decide if they don't have the courage or the will to go to Washington and lobby to change the law.
Sure. Don't
tell us that you're going to decide how it's going to go or tell law enforcement to turn our backs on our oath.
You know, we had a report about an hour ago, Sheriff. Griff Jenkins was at that meeting yesterday, and it's interesting because a number of top law enforcement officials from these sanctuary cities are essentially in denial. What are you talking about? We're not a sanctuary city because they want to keep the money.
Right. And that's really what this is about. That's why they're there. They're more concerned about the money. But look, we're not gonna back down on this issue. The president's absolutely right in insisting that sanctuary cities be penalized if they're not going to follow federal law. You can't just ignore it. Otherwise, what's going to happen is other communities will say, well, I guess, and the public will say, I guess they really aren't serious about it.
Yeah. Speaking of the public, it would be interesting. Ainsley interviewed one of the angel moms yesterday who said, if you put this up for a vote in these sanctuary cities, most people in these sanctuary cities would probably vote on the side of law enforcement.
Oh, there's no question about it. Look, I don't care what your party affiliation is. People want to be safe, and that's the fundamental responsibility of government. So there's no question about that.
All right. Sheriff, we thank you very much.
Well, a full, busy week for the House Intelligence Committee's Russia investigation. Former White House strategist Steve Bannon is testifying today. He reportedly will face questions about that 2016 Trump Tower meeting, which he called treasonous in a controversial new book. This as the special counsel has subpoenaed Bannon to testify in its investigation. Meanwhile, the Intel Committee is also going to interview White House Communications Director Hope Hicks and demoted Justice Department employee Bruce Orr in the coming days, as well as my next guest, former Trump campaign manager and co-author of Let Trump Be Trump, Corey Lewandowski. Great to see you today, Corey. First of all, I want to just chat with you personally about what's coming up later this week for you, what you've been told.
I've been asked to come and voluntarily submit to a series of questions to the House Intelligence Committee to provide them any information that will confirm that there was no collusion, cooperation, or coordination between the Trump campaign and Russia. And I'm happy to do that because I have said on 100 occasions, I will tell anybody what took place, which there was no collusion, there was no cooperation, there was no coordination. And my opportunity to go and do this in front of the House committee that's looking at it, I look forward to it very much.
And I've read and also heard from you that you do not plan to take the fifth. You are going to take every question.
Oh, take the fifth. Look, what you take the fifth when you're in trouble. I didn't do anything, and the campaign didn't do anything. And so I have no reason to take the fifth. I'm going to answer every question. I'm going to make sure that they understand, if somebody hasn't already told them, as the person who was the campaign manager to the presidential candidate for almost 2 years, that there was no collusion. I did not interact with Russia in any way, shape, or form that I know of. There was no cooperation. We didn't do anything to materially impact the outcome of an election with an outside entity. And anybody that did should be held accountable. But it wasn't me, I can tell you that, because I don't think it ever happened other than the Clinton campaign.
So when you hear Steve Bannon use the word treasonous about a meeting that Donald Trump Jr. had at Trump Tower, what is your response?
Well, look, I think Steve's choice of words were very poor. And I also think that what he clarified afterwards was he was talking about Paul Manafort, someone who has done an extensive amount of business in Russia or overseas, and should have known better than taking that meeting. And look, Steve wasn't around for that time. He wasn't part of the campaign team at that time. I was. I wasn't invited to the meeting. I didn't know anything about the meeting. And so, you know, to go back and look at it in hindsight, I think what Steve was trying to clarify was a known political operative like Paul Manafort should have known better than to take a meeting like that.
Did you see anything with Steve Bannon in terms of his relationship with you or behavior in the White House that could have gotten to the point where he would describe a meeting with the president's son meeting with Russians as treasonous?
You know, I'm very shocked by that, and I can tell you, you know, Steve owes Don Jr. and Jared Kushner, who also attended that meeting, an apology. There's no question about it. I know both of them very well. You know, they are American patriots as far as I'm concerned. Jared Kushner has left his family business to come work for the government at no pay, away from his family, and take that sacrifice. Don Jr. is a man who I've stood beside many, many, many times. I know how much he loves his country. I know how much he loves his father. And to say something like that is so out of bounds, I can't justify it in any way.
You know, he's taking that meeting with the House Intel Committee today, Steve Bannon. What are some of the questions that you anticipate to come up? And just kind of handicap it for us, what it's like to go into this type of situation.
Well, my best guess is that, you know, the Democrats who are participating in the closed-door meeting have already stepped out a few times, leaked the information to CNN so that they can, you know, tell the story of what they want to get out as opposed to remaining confidential like it's supposed to be. And my guess is they're going to go through a litany of names of people that I know I've never heard of before to talk about, you know, were they involved in any way, shape, or form of the campaign. And because I was there, look, Steve was there for a short period of time. I was there for almost 2 years. Every day next to the candidate, next to President Trump. Never, ever, ever do we coordinate or cooperate or collude with any Russians. And so what Steve's going to talk about in the committee, I don't know, but there's nothing there. And what I think they should do is they should bring this investigation to a quick close.
All right. So you are later this week. Have they given you any sort of indication of when that might happen and what that might be like?
Well, I don't know yet exactly the day. It's obviously going to be in the next couple, 3 days here. And all they've said to me is to prepare to go in and answer questions. I'm going to answer every question truthfully, honestly, to the best of my ability and to the best of my recollection. But because I have nothing to hide, I'm looking forward for this opportunity to help finally bring this to a close.
Yeah, not everybody, I would imagine. You know, you've got a lawyer up to get into this whole thing. Not everybody will be as open to the concept of this. Before I let you go, how surprised are you that they are looking at others? There's a longer list of people that the Democrats, at least, on the committee would like to talk with.
Well, look, the Democrats want to keep this investigation going as long as possible. And if you look at it, you know, I don't know how many people they've interviewed now, but we're in the dozens at minimum, if not multiple dozens at this point. At some point, when everybody is saying the same exact thing, you have to take it at their word, which there was no collusion. So for the Democrats, they have to get over the fact that they want to keep this going to make it a political issue going into the midterm elections and finally bring the realization home that nothing took place between the Trump campaign and someone from Russia. The Clinton campaign is a very different story. They paid money to steal. We know that. They created the false dossier. They've admitted to it. Let's look into that.
Well, you've got Bruce Orr from the Justice Department also being called in. You know, his wife worked for Fusion GPS, which put together that anti-Trump dossier. I want to get your response to that as well. So now you've got a situation where they are looking at a total scope here more than had been previously.
Well, look, and it's very important that whether it's the Mueller team or the House committee or the Senate committee, that they go where the information leads them. And what we have seen is this is leading to the deep state. This is leading to some bad individuals inside the FBI who use their power very wrongly to target the Trump team as a, quote, insurance policy, so that if Hillary, lost, then they would have a policy on the Trump operation. And what we need to do is make sure those individuals who abuse their power as FBI agents are held accountable.
Yeah, the critics would snap back at you and say, oh, deep state, people scream conspiracy. That just can't really be happening. That maligns the thousands of people at the FBI and other agencies. I want to give you a quick last word.
Look, my friends work at the FBI, and they're great people, and 99.9% of those people are the greatest at what they do. But what we've seen is a very small group of FBI agents who changed the wording in the Clinton information, who were texting back and forth between each other about how much they hated Trump. And we've got individuals whose family was tied to the dossier that's part of the FBI. That's not the deep state. That's very real.
Corey Lewandowski, I also know you have a best-selling book out. Thank you for stopping by Overtime. Appreciate
My pleasure.
it. We'll check
Thank
in
you.
after you testify. We'll move on.